Hey guys, what's up?
Hey Sailor, how you doing? Hey
Good
Matt.
evening.
Oh
What's going
wow!
on?
Hey Matt,
Hi.
what's shaking?
It's
Nothing.
spring.
Oh,
Spring
that
has
much.
sprung. We are no longer the Arctic tundra.
Oh
Anymore.
yay!
I did have a terrible
Yeah.
day at work, but I will not let that bring me down.
Oh no,
I'm
don't
so
do that.
Sorry.
No.
Just drink all your 7 beverages on your desk.
It must be something
Yeah.
to have a bad day at work when you're surrounded by bottles of bourbon.
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
All right, I won't pry any farther.
So here we are back again, and we're going to be continuing our discussion on the police and Sting. And I just want to let you guys know, in preparation for this, I decided I would watch whatever documentaries there were out there, which I assume there would be tons, on the police and Sting. And of course, there was a behind the music on both of them. And there was a couple documentaries on the police, the band. And so I've watched all of them. I just went way down the rabbit hole, everything I could find. And it changed it changed how I perceived and feel about the members of the band, for sure. So, I
Interesting.
think it,
Doesn't sound like good news.
well, I mean, for some of them it is. I definitely still really like Sting and think he's incredibly talented, and just seems like a solid guy. But other members of the band, like Stuart Copeland, I would probably punch him in the face.
Ooh,
Yeah,
boy.
I would
That's
probably.
unfortunate.
I would not be able to get along with him. He seems like a very difficult person to get along with. Like, he's a pain in the ass.
Temperamental artist.
Yeah, but also like just like a dorky guy who happened to be in a band with like a really smooth guy and just really couldn't handle it. I don't know. And then poor Andy Summers has got to be one of the sweetest guys. He's just had to be the middleman, and who's kind of the middle child, you know, between the two of these hotheads fighting with each other all the time.
Yeah, really. It's usually not the lead guitarist that ends up in that position.
No, but it is.
True, yeah.
It was here. But for just to give you an example, there's several parts of these documentaries where Stuart Copeland is referring to Sting as the bassist, and I'm like, really, the bassist? He's the singer, songwriter, arranger, composer, and yes, a bassist. But really, the
Like,
bassist?
oh yeah, talk to the bassist.
Yeah, he's like, oh, and then I have the bassist telling me how to do this and that. And I'm like, oh boy. Yeah.
Sounds like we're lucky we got 5 years out of him then.
Yeah. Indeed. Well, it's interesting because now, it being so many years, I got to watch them when they were very young and still in the police. And then there was a really great documentary about them going to the Far East, they called it at the time. And so again, they're still in the band. Then there was a documentary on their tour that they did in 2000. What was that? 7 and 8.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
that was an interesting, thing to see. But Sting made it very clear that although they toured again, there was no way they were ever going to make an album together again. And I think I understand now why. So.
Okay, yeah, I definitely have to go. Like I said, I was planning on watching those, but didn't get around to it. But I kind of always imagined that Sting would have been like the prima donna in that situation.
I was just gonna say that. Yeah. with this one name and everything, like, yeah.
Well, he didn't give himself
Sting.
a name. Let's be
I know,
fair.
I know.
It was made fun of as, a young guy. But no, I think what I took from it was that by the time Sting made it to get together with Stuart Copeland, I think that he was already a well-formed musician and had an idea of what he wanted to do, what he wanted to play, what kind of songs he wanted to write. Not that he had, he had gone nowhere really in his career, but I think, I mean, obviously he's just a natural talent. So I think that he seems to be someone that just is very kind of laid back in that sense, where he just is like, I can stick to my guns because he doesn't really care either way, and like, this music I want to play and this is it. And I don't think that works when you're trying to form a new band, because obviously you're going to want to, he really wanted to do all the songwriting and all. I think they said by the second album it was just like Sting took over everything, and wanted to write everything. And when he would bring in a demo, it was like a fully formed song. Mm-hmm. And they're like, I guess we're not writing this together. And I mean, I can see that from both ends. I can see how, frustrating that would be as a band. And I can see how frustrating that would be as an artist yourself, feeling like, well, obviously he was already ready for that, and he would have been held back by the rest of the band. What do you do in that situation? Right.
I can see it as if you're an artist with already a fully formed vision in your head, having to compromise with the other members of the band would be very difficult to do.
Yeah. Very difficult. Very difficult, especially when you're not really playing the style of music that you're interested in playing. That would make it even more challenging. And we've seen this thread through so many bands.
It's so interesting when you compare the Police's music style to what Sting has gone on to do as a solo artist. They're so far removed from each other.
Yes.
It's just incredible.
It's like the Van Halen thing too. It's like
they
were going here, and David Lee Roth was going here, and everybody else wanted to stay here.
Good point, Matt. Good point.
Well, and that was about 5 years too.
And we brought this up about Randy Rhoads and Ozzy. We brought this up about Cliff and Metallica. Had both of those young men survived, would they have stayed with those bands playing that style of music? Because it really wasn't what, ultimately they wanted to do other things. And there have been so many rumors that, Randy was already ready to leave to do his own thing. Again, you evolve as a musician, and that doesn't always mean you're going to grow together with the band you're with. But before we get too deep into this, whoa. Before the music always comes the whiskey. So what are you guys all drinking tonight?
I'll go first.
Tonight. Okay.
Yeah, for a
always
change.
Anxious to hear what Matt usually has something interesting.
Yeah, I do have something interesting today. So I am drinking Scotch, 12-year single malt from Speyside. I always have a problem with this name for some reason, but I think it's Benriach. I think
it's
Don't ask me. That sounds
Benriach. Yeah.
That sounds good. I don't know.
Yeah.
Either.
I mean, there probably is a pronunciation on the bottle here somewhere, but this one's called this one's called the Smoky 12. So it is a 3-cask aged 12-year single malt. They do Marsala, they do a Marsala wine cask, sherry cask, and a bourbon cask. So 12 years in each cask, and then they marry it together at the end.
12 years in each cask?
Yes. And then they marry it together at the end.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I see what you're saying. So it's not like it takes 36 years.
No.
They got 12 years in 3 different batches. Yeah.
You'd have I don't know, a liter left over at the end of it.
And this is one of the many feathers in the cap of the master blender, whose name is Rachel Barry, who has been in the whiskey industry, specifically Scotch, for about 30 years. She's worked at all the big boys. She's worked at Ardbeg, Glenmorangie. I think she signed on with Brown-Forman maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and she's been really leading the charge with these guys, with Glendronach and a couple other brands from them, a couple other Scotch brands. And, I probably would have never bought this, but the fact that the 3-cask marriage really just kind of grabbed me, and it is so beautifully well balanced between vanilla and the smoke, which is not overpowering smoke. It's not the Band-Aidy thing that you guys always make fun of me for. It's much softer. There's some sweetness there that balances it out. So this is a killer bottle,
Okay.
and I think I paid $65 for it. So
Can I just share something with you real quick, Matt, to help you out?
help me out. Yes.
Yeah, just real quick.
Is it one of those audio pronunciations?
Yeah, hold on.
Let's see the bottle. Ah, there you go. Ben Riach.
I probably said it right.
Yeah.
Oh, this guy, yeah.
Can you
Well,
hear
I
it?
said it. I said it
Yeah,
right,
hold
but
on.
I had the pronunciation on the wrong syllable.
The Ben Riach.
Ben Riach.
The
Yeah.
Ben Riach.
I said Ben Riach. So
Yeah, you
Ben
really
Riach.
gotta
Wrong-
have a
wrong
little bit
syllable.
of phlegm in your throat when you say that.
yeah.
So,
Ben Riach.
I think so. I have tried one. I don't remember what expression I tried from the Ben Riach, but I tried something and I actually liked it because now I know it's the Isla peat that I don't care for. So,
Mhm.
because there's several things now that I'll drink that are, I feel like I always said it's softly smoked.
This
like
is both peated and
That's
unpeated
Highland.
malt, so it's not completely
Oh,
peated
that's
malt.
probably why I like it too.
Oh yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
It's not overwhelming.
Very light on the
Mhm.
peat.
Light on the peat.
For
let it-
Pete's sake,
Stupid.
stupid.
Ping.
You can tell he's a dad.
Here come the dad jokes.
Mm.
Ed, what's in your glass tonight?
My glass tonight. Well, I had an opportunity to join in an online, like a Zoom whiskey tasting with a couple of founders and a few other folks of a whiskey brand in Tennessee. And I hadn't really heard too much about it before this. I got an invite to attend this, and I'm glad I did. The distillery in question is Chattanooga Whiskey. And and we got to taste a couple of different expressions. And I really liked their 91 proof. I thought was really good. So that's what I have here tonight. I have the Chattanooga Whiskey 91 proof straight bourbon whiskey. And I believe, I don't want to speak out of turn, I think this one, yeah, they have a 4,000 gallon oak Solera barrel that they use for this. So it's a mixture of different ages of bourbons. And on the bottle, it says age greater than 2 years. But I guess depending on how long, it goes on, being the Solera method, there could be a little bit of, some pretty old bourbon in there.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, yeah, I really enjoyed it. And so I went out and I was very surprised to find a bottle of this at our little local mom and pop liquor store down the street from us. So
It's
It's
good
a-
stuff. I like.
yeah,
I
it
like
is.
theirs.
Is that the 91 or the 111?
it's the
that you got
91.
there? The 91.
91, yeah.
Solid bottle.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I actually had a chance to visit that distillery a couple I don't know how many summers ago. And I really enjoyed it. And I really enjoyed hearing about their story and all that
Mhm.
they've done for their town, for the city, for the downtown area, for literally helping to change laws in Tennessee about what distilleries can do and cannot do. And, just really fantastic, fantastic group of people. So yeah, I love that you chose that.
Yeah, but they definitely know what they're doing. This is another good example of I know, Sailor, we've talked in the past about your small craft bourbons and whiskeys. Go out, seek them out, support these small distillers. They can put out some really special stuff, and this is a great example, another great example of what you can find. It's a really nice, well-balanced bourbon. It's a little bit on the sweeter side as your typical bourbon is. It's got a little bit of, I'd say, some vanilla and caramel notes, and definitely some baking spices going on in there. And yeah, it's just a really easy sipper. 91 proof. It's got a little bit of heat without being too overpowering, and you can really, really taste the flavors in there really well. So yeah, I'm a big fan.
Yeah, they're fantastic.
I'm getting like raisins on the finish, so you got like the dried fruit. Yeah,
Ooh,
good
very
stuff.
And a great price.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Well, I am drinking an American whiskey tonight, and since Women's History Month just concluded, I wanted to pull out another bottle with a kick-ass lady behind it. I am drinking Widow Jane 10.
Oh yeah,
which is just a phenomenal pour. Lisa Roper Wicker I am such a fan. Like she's such a rock star.
yeah. She's
I
in
had
my
to-
Instagram feed. Yep.
Yes, she is. If I had to choose meeting, I don't know, a female musician versus her, I would choose her. She's so smart and so talented and so incredible, and just what she does is so amazing. I'm gonna actually talk a little bit more about her in the future, so I don't want to go too deep into it, but talk about blending. And Matt and we've been talking about this for years now and years.
Such blending geeks we are.
We are total blending
Yes.
geeks. Just the art of blending and what it takes to be an actual blender. Not someone who just picks things that are already blended, but understands how to blend. And one of the things that I absolutely love is her attention to the water in her whiskey. And so, sure, in Kentucky and in Tennessee and in Southwest Ohio, you've got that limestone water, and in Kentucky, there's the water department is, people like know them on the streets. They're the rock stars of the bourbon industry, and rightly so, making sure that their water continues to be what it's supposed to be for one of their largest industries. And that's really one of the things that Lisa is so serious about, is the water, and using this mineral water from New York. And just the way she's able to blend flavors and her understanding of flavors is just unbelievable. So highly recommend. Go get a bottle of Widow Jane. Check it out. It doesn't matter what expression. I want to talk about their Applewood here in a few weeks. We'll go down that rat hole a little bit. But yeah, just phenomenal whiskey. I'm actually having a cocktail tonight because it's been a really long time since I had a cocktail on the show. I actually don't drink a ton of cocktails anymore because I'm always making drinks for everybody else. I think if we count it up, I made over 600 cocktails just this week for our cocktail kits.
Oh wow, I'm going to be getting a few of those.
Yours, it's on its way already. You're probably getting an email from Robin as we speak with your tracking number.
I got my email today.
Okay.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, you'll probably get it Friday, tomorrow, or Saturday, probably. So I am having just something very simple because I don't want to put too much into this. Just a little bit of a caramel syrup that I made and some Hella Mexican chocolate bitters. That's it. And a dehydrated lemon that's opening up as the ice cube dissolves. It's that lemon juice is getting in that. Oh, it's just so delicious. So, yeah. So thank you, Lisa, for all the gifts that you give us. And another kick-ass woman in whiskey.
Yeah, believe it or not, that's another one I haven't tried yet, but it sounds like I have to. I need to get around to it.
Yes, you do.
For sure.
Yes. I would say that, the other thing that's awesome about Widow Jane is the price point is really fantastic, and they are, craft out of New York, but you should be able to find it anywhere. So.
Oh yeah.
All right. Let's play a song and then get into our discussion. What do you guys think?
Awesome.
Let's go.
Let's do it.
You ready for this?
I am ready.
Do it.
Get your boxing gloves on.
Unlike Jenny, Roxanne is a hooker.
Touche. Bada bing. I love it.
Anyone
All
who's
right.
listened to our One Hit Wonders episode will get
You
it.
know exactly what we're talking about.
Yep.
All right. So everyone listening, if you follow me on Spotify, which I think a lot of you do, I'm just Sailor Guevara on Spotify. I made a playlist called Sting Forever. So you can tune into that. So let me just go through some vital statistics before we get into our discussion, because I just want to preempt some possible bullshit. All right, shall we?
Okay.
So Sting has received 17 Grammy Awards. He has won 3 Brit Awards, including Best British Male Artist, an Outstanding Contribution, a Golden Globe, an Emmy, and 4 nominations for the Academy Award for Best Original Song. He received a BMI Award for Every Breath You Take, becoming the most well-played song in radio history. In 2002, Sting received the Ivor Novello Award for Lifetime Achievement from the British Academy of Songwriters, Composers, and Authors, and he was inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame. He was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as a member of the Police in 2003. He received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. In 2003, he also received a CBE from Queen Elizabeth at Buckingham Palace for services to music. Does that make him a sir?
Yes.
I don't know.
The most
Yes? Okay.
excellent
I think
order of the British Empire.
So he's a sir now. No,
Sting.
that's if you're knighted, right? I don't know.
Oh no.
I
No,
don't know.
it's the CBE is the most excellent order of the British Empire. It
Yeah, I don't
sounds
think
very Bill and Ted-ish. Most excellent order. It says it's
Most
a British
excellent
award,
order.
British Order of Chivalry.
The most
rewarding
British
contribution-
award possible would be most excellent. Anyway, okay. He was also made a Kennedy Center honoree at the White House in 2014 and was awarded the Polar Prize in Music in 2017. So he is a very well lauded artist. Let's dive into a couple of his solo albums. So just to recap, after leaving the Police, actually before leaving the Police, he started writing The Dream of Blue Turtles, which came out in June of '85. The album was number 2 on the US Billboard charts and went 3 times platinum in the US. Does anybody know what prevented him from being number 1? No? Bueller?
Not off the top of my head.
Bueller. Born in the USA.
Oh,
I know, right? Yeah, just, very, very different
Yeah.
sounds.
Very different.
Very different. So from this album, he had a huge hit, which was If You Love Somebody, Set Them Free, which was number 3 in the US and charted all over the world. Let me just play a little ditty from that.
If you need somebody, call my name. If you want someone, you can do the same. If you want to keep something precious, gotta lock it up and throw away the keys. You want to hold on to your possession.
All right. So, interesting thing about that song, most people thought it was a Police song. They thought it was the Police. Right? So the Police had just finished, and it wasn't, they didn't say, oh, we're breaking up and this is happening. We're going to do a final tour and, it's going to be a goodbye. It was just like, oh, a new song is on the radio. You hear Sting singing and you just assume it's the Police. I don't know if you recognize, like, oh, did they get back together? What happened? Because it wasn't complete. I mean, they said that they weren't going to make another album after their last show in Australia, but they didn't really say breakup at the time.
well, I have a little bit of a different recollection of that. I remember Sting coming out with a solo album was kind of a big deal at the time. So at
Mhm.
least I, in my circle, knew that, oh, that's Sting and his new solo work, coming out. Because I remember it being kind of a big deal. He left the Police and he's doing his own thing. I'm sure there are a lot of people out there, if they weren't aware of it, maybe. They
Yeah,
would've
it
thought
was a big deal, but it was so quickly after they broke up that a lot of people initially just thought, oh, this is a Police song, and then realized, oh, that's the song off of his new album, and yes, his new album, and et cetera, et cetera. He had some major hits with this.
Oh, yeah.
album.
I mean, that album was loaded.
Major. So I think everybody knows the song Russians at this
Yep.
point.
Oh,
That's on
such a
this
timely
album.
song. Oh, my
Oof.
gosh.
Oh, big time. Fortress Around Your Heart was huge.
Yep.
Love is the Seventh Wave was, I remember, isn't that the song he did on Saturday Night Live, I think, if I remember?
I have no recollection of that. It could be. I don't know.
Moon Over Bourbon Street. So just
Oh, yeah.
big hits on this album.
One thing we didn't touch on either is his actual full name here is Gordon Matthew Thomas Sumner. No wonder he just wanted to go by Sting
So
with a
he,
long name like that.
so
Gordon.
it was his first band, and they said, well, everybody has to have nicknames in this band.
Ah,
So we're gonna have to come up with a nickname for you. So he shows up to practice with a sweatshirt that it looks like the Charlie Brown shirt. It's like black and yellow stripes. And they're like, "Oh, you look like you idiot just got your like a big bee. What are you gonna sting us all? We're gonna call you Sting." And that was the end of that. He became Sting.
I love
I mean,
it.
the way he says it is way funnier than the way I'm saying it. But so I mean, this album, like I said, it goes 3 times platinum in the US. It's a massive hit. I don't think he had any concerns about what his career was going to be after the Police with this album.
Fortress Around Your Heart. That's another big one. I don't think you mentioned
Oh,
that one.
that
Yeah.
song is probably, I'm going to play a clip because this is one of my top favorite songs from.
Play the clip, and then I have to ask you a question when we come back. Yeah.
Okay.
Ruins of a walled city, crumbling towers and beams of yellow lights. No flags of truce, no cries of pity. The siege guns have been pounding through the night. It took a day to build the city. We walked through its streets in the afternoon. As I returned across the fields I'd known, I recognized the walls that I'd once made. Had to stop in my tracks for fear of walking on the mines I laid. And if I built this fortress around your heart,
So-
there's you and
That song is such a great example of, I mean, there's so many great examples, but his songwriting is so amazing. It's just, if you listen to the lyrics in that, it's absolutely incredible. I just like his writing style a lot.
Do you
Guess
think that? Oh, go ahead. Go
No,
ahead.
no, go ahead.
Do you think that when he went solo, do you think it was a very large percentage of Police fans that went with him, and you think those fans stuck around for a while, or do you think it was mostly a new audience that were kind of open to his music? Because it is different. It does progress differently.
I think it's a combination of both.
Yeah.
I would say that considering the success that he had post Police and with the Police, that he retained a majority of the audience and then picked up an equal amount of new listeners. He is bigger than the Police.
Yeah.
We know that,
Mhm.
So I think that initially, were the Police fans punk rockers? They really weren't. And that's the thing. Like, Stuart Copeland wanted to have punk rock band. That's what he was into. That, I think, more that's what he thought was going to make it at the time and be a hit. And he was smart. He was, he was right. I mean, we know what real punk rock is. I don't really think they had this big punk rock, and thank God they didn't, because they wouldn't have gone very far. Um,
No, they
So
had
I-
such.
I think the majority of the fans were into the sound that he was creating. Let's just be real. After their first album, I mean, he wrote it, he's creating the sound of the Police. That's Sting's. That's his music.
Yeah, and I'm sure there were bitter fans that were like, fuck this guy. He wanted to go do his own thing. But I'm sure that there were also those hardcore fans of his that said, whatever this guy does, doesn't matter what it is. He could,
I
take a
don't
steaming
think
pile of
anybody-
shit,
I don't
And
think
we'll
anybody
still love
said
him.
fuck him. I don't think that
You don't think
happened.
so? No. Okay.
Because, like I said, he's the front man of the band. He's writing all the songs. It's his voice. I mean, sure, the Police stopped being the Police, but he was instantly out with an album, so you still got to have his sounds. And he really didn't go. The style of music from this album is not such a departure from what listen to the
Yep.
Police's last album,
Yep.
right? So the Dream of
With
Blue
this
Turtles,
album, yes.
it's
Yep.
Yeah.
right. At this time, it's not. So I really don't know. I would love to know it from the listeners if any of you were Police fans and when he went on and did his own thing, you were like, fuck him. I don't remember anyone being like that at all. We just kept listening to Sting.
No, it's
It
not like
felt-
some other bands that I, like Metallica probably being a good example of when they released the Black Album. They just lost, a ton of fans, but of course it gained a bunch of new ones. Yeah, nothing like that I can recall at all.
Interesting.
No big controversy.
No, I think it's because, I mean, again, when the Dream of Blue Turtles came out, it was like, oh, it's still Sting. And that's kind of how you felt about the Police. Sting he was the Police as far as we were concerned. He was. I think if there had been years in between, I think if he had maybe come out with, the Summoner's Tales right on the heels of the Police, that might have been like, whoa, what the fuck? What is this? Sure. I mean, sure. But the composition, the sounds, the vibe of the Dream of Blue Turtles is not that different from the Police albums.
And I don't think it naturally would be, because he's still progressing and he's still, he's not that far removed from the Police at that point. He's just beginning to transition away.
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised that it's not that. And because you get a song like Fortress Around Your Heart, which has kind of got a little bit of a bouncy beat, like
Yep.
most of the Police songs have. Although, there are some other songs like Russians, which are more somber. And Moon
But
Over Bourbon.
couldn't you see the Police doing Russians? I could totally see that. Not
with-
Moon Over
sure.
Bourbon Street. Russians, I could see them doing.
Yeah, definitely not Moon Over Bourbon Street.
No.
That's more of a jazz
Yeah.
style.
Yes.
But yeah, coming back to Russians though, I remember that song made such an impression on me at the time, because I mean, Matt, I don't know, this might be a little harder for you to imagine at the time, but I'm trying to think of a modern day equivalent. The Russians were really, by our government and everything, or they were kind of even in the mainstream, the media and everything, they were kind of vilified as like, almost like how we would think about maybe like the Taliban or ISIS nowadays,
Worse.
where, these people, they're heartless, they're out, they just want nothing but death to America and all this stuff. And here comes a song.
Well, I think that had been going on for
Basically-
decades at that point.
Yeah,
though.
It had,
yeah,
but-
yeah.
And it
This is
basically-
our
it makes an
this
attempt
is
to-
our
Yeah, no,
awareness
touche.
of it
Yeah.
at our age.
it makes you think
Gotcha.
about them. It humanizes them
As
It makes
humans,
them
exactly.
As they're not
Yep.
that much different from us, and they still have
Yes.
they have feelings too, and they want their kids to grow up in a safe in the safe world or whatever. But yeah,
It was a very polarizing time because it was a very singular enemy, and the Americans were very successful in making the Russians the world enemy. And so as a child growing up like that, it was the one singular focus. And at the time the song came out, it was what everybody was talking about. It was it was a fear I would go to bed with all the time. There were freaking movies. There was a TV movie. Was it called The Day After, Ed? That one?
Yes. Yep.
About the nuclear. I mean, it was talk about terrifying to children. And we didn't have the kind of shit that you have now. Kids are so desensitized to things. But I remember, when I was in college, I went to Barcelona for a program, and I met a Russian girl, and it was the first time that I was able to meet a person. She was exactly my age, from Russia, not who had lived in the U.S. and was an immigrant, but still living in Russia. And she didn't speak any English, and she had a translator with her. And there was kids from all over the world, and we were all like talking to each other. And her and I kept making eye contact. And finally, I asked the organizer, like, I would really like some time with her, because you got like this time to sit down and ask each other questions. And she was like, turns out we were both desperate to talk to each other, more than anyone else there, which of course, And so just sitting and talking with her, we had the same exact experience as growing up. I told her I used to wait by the bus stop, and if I heard this really loud noise, I would think, oh my God, is that the bomb? Are they dropping the bomb, the Russians? And it would always be the Russians doing it. And she said, oh my God, she used to have they would have drills that the Americans are bombing them, and just everything, same thing. She said, when the Russian song came out, it was banned in Russia at first. And of course, it became, everybody was bootlegging it. And then they actually started playing it because they realized what he was saying.
What it's really about. Yep.
What it's really, yeah. And it was something that we could share together, this song that both made us have an awareness for each other.
Oh, that's awesome.
Because they were being told the same thing. We were cruel and heartless. We have people who live on the streets and don't have any food. And they were like, what? How is that possible? It's the typical political polarizing. But that song was unbelievable at the time. But again, I don't think it was something that the police wouldn't have done, in my opinion. Matt, what is your take on this album?
Well, I'll have some hotter takes with some later stuff, but I think that, the guy's fucking amazing. He really comes out of the gate super strong. Like you said, if you didn't know any better, you could have said that this was another Police album with the trajectory that they were going. So I did not mind this album whatsoever. It's just another feather in the cap for him with everything that he did with the Police. So great songs, deeper sort of levels to his songwriting, songwriting, I would say here. Really kind of expanding that horizon a little bit. You're not getting your he did that on Synchronicity too, but you're not getting your typical Police, themes from their first three or four albums here. So it was really good. I didn't think I would like it, but I did enjoy this one.
Yeah, I think it's a phenomenal album, and it was so popular when it came out. And then he doesn't waste a lot of time. In 87, he's back with a new album, which is Nothing Like the Sun. And again, massive hits. It goes 2 times platinum. We'll Be Together is a gigantic hit off of this album. And then Be Still My Beating Heart, Englishman in New York, and Fragile. Fragile is probably one of the most incredible songs he's ever written. I listened to an isolated track so that there was no vocals on it, and the music the composition is stunning. And then again, reading the lyrics to it, and just the way he's such an incredible poet, he's such an amazing writer. This song just always blows me away. And then of course you have They Dance Alone, which we should definitely talk about.
Oh, I don't know if you realized it, but just like recently, as in probably since our last recording, they've released a video. Sting and an artist called Shirazi have released they did a duet. It's called Englishman / African in New York. And apparently This artist Shirazi is an African artist. He released a song "African in New York," which is based off of a Sting song, and they have like a duet in there. It's really cool. It's on YouTube on Vivo. If you should go check it out, it's pretty cool. And I guess they performed it live on TV and like Good Morning America just a few days ago too. So
I'll have
he's
to
still
check
out
that
there doing stuff.
Oh God, yeah, he is. So they dance alone. Little known fact: Eric Clapton is accompanying him on this song on guitar. Do you guys know what this song is about?
They
No.
dance alone. I missed that one.
So it's a protest song, and it's a metaphor referring to mourning the Chilean women who dance the. I'm gonna pronounce this wrong. I apologize. The Cueca. I can't. It's the
Cueca solo.
Yeah, I
Cueca.
think that's okay. Yeah. It's the national dance of Chile, and they dance alone with the photographs of their husbands and sons and brothers who have disappeared at the hands of dictators, in specific Pinochet. So again, you have to remember this is the late 80s, and so to see the footage is something you only want to do when you're feeling well in your mind, because it's very upsetting. He was responsible for killing thousands and thousands. They don't even know how many between 1973 and 1990. And so it was recorded in both English and Spanish, and just a really important song, because it kind of shed light to the rest of the world before we had, YouTube and social media and all of that, on what was going on in Chile, and really what was happening under the Pinochet regime. He played it at Nelson Mandela's 70th birthday tribute, which was an Amnesty International concert, and he played it with Peter Gabriel. And then he actually played with a what am I trying to say? A Chilean national band. I can't know what I'm trying to say. Just absolutely incredible. It's amazing. Once again, the writing is incredible, and the symbolism is just unbelievable. So. And this, I think, is really when he begins to, he did it with Russians, of course, but I think this is when he comes into his own, not only just as being strong as a solo artist, but also being able to be political, and voice his own views and his own protests. And I think he does it really, really well in this album. So, I'm going to play They Dance Alone for a minute.
Dancing with their fathers, dancing with their sons, dancing with their husbands, they dance alone. They dance alone.
Okay, I recognize it now that I hear it.
Super powerful, very powerful. Again, he's definitely someone that you want to pull out those liner notes back in the day and read the lyrics to his songs for sure. And then, of course, there's We'll Be Together, which was, the massive hit off this album. If you guys remember, I'll play this for you guys as well. Another kick-ass song.
The great backup singers behind him in that one. Oh man,
Yeah, it's
that's
such a fucking great song. God damn it. Anyway,
I see Andy Summers made a couple of appearances in this album too.
he did. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yep.
sticking around.
Yeah, I mean, they like I said, Andy got along with everybody, and I
Yeah.
think Sting and Andy were fine with each other. I don't think they were the problem. And
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Of course, I'm gleaning this from documentaries, but I don't give a fuck. It's my opinion. I think it was just two very strong personalities that both wanted to be in control, and I think one was talented enough to do so, and the other was not as much. So
Yeah, he didn't really have a leg to stand on. I mean, honestly,
I mean,
about it. It's true. I mean,
he
come
really
on.
fucking didn't.
No.
He really didn't.
No.
And that is proven with album after album after album on his Sting
Yeah.
solo albums. If it wasn't already proven in the Please album, so that's Nothing Like the Sun, and then he follows that up with Soul Cages in '91. He won a Grammy for this. It was a #1 album in the UK. All This Time was a massive,
Oh, that was
massive
awesome
radio
song. I
hit.
love that song.
Great song. Great song. Let me play this. Matt, do you know this? Are you familiar with this song?
I've probably heard it, but I'd have to hear a few bars.
I looked out across the river today. Saw a city in the fog and a old church tower where the seagulls play. Saw the sad, shy horses walking home in the sodium light. Two priests on a ferry, October geese on a cold winter's night. All this time,
Such a great, happy song. Such a great, awesome, upbeat, happy song.
This is the we're on Soul Cages, right? Right now we're talking about Soul
Yeah.
Cages.
Mhm.
This is kind of, and a little bit on the last album too. This is kind of where I started to lose it a little bit.
So, are you not a jazz fan?
So, and I made the joke like, "Oh, what's the strongest coffee ever made?" Well, I fucking needed it for this stuff because I couldn't
So you-
like it wasn't just it just I don't know the stuff. It's like so good, you know what I'm saying? But it's
Mhm.
so different. It becomes so different than the Police
Very
stuff.
different.
Oh,
Very
yeah.
different.
If
And
you're
it
looking for
doesn't-
the Police, you're not
with
going to find
each- no,
Cheer.
absolutely, absolutely.
With each album, it's getting farther and farther,
Yes,
and
he's-
farther away.
farther away.
But he's also very
Yeah.
fashionable because he's very of his time in music.
Yeah.
Correct.
was
I would
one
say.
of the-
Yep.
The forefront of world music, which used to be a
Yes.
term.
Yep.
in
Yeah,
the-
he certainly has
Oh,
his pulse on
definitely.
what's going on. I give him
Yeah.
that too. But
Yeah.
like I was telling Jen this, like I had to set my alarm for 9 p.m. to record because I was asleep listening to some of this stuff.
I mean,
I'm not like shitting. I mean, the stuff's
Yeah, taste
freaking
is
amazing.
subjective,
It's just not
yeah.
my taste. Yeah.
yeah, no. Taste is
Yeah.
subjective. We can't argue about taste.
Of course,
we can
yeah.
argue about talent, of course. But this is very of the time. The sounds in this album take me right back to '91. I know exactly where I was and what I was doing and what clothes and hair looked like, and it was all very terrible. But the music was very good. And there was a great divergence that was happening at this time. So prior to this, you had a lot of funk, you had a lot of jazzy stuff and other things in rock. This is when it all starts. It starts parting. This is the very early days of that great division.
Yep.
And so, because you're about to have grunge coming on the scene, right?
Yep.
And this is when everything gets fucked, in my opinion, and why music just sucked for so long, because everything's splitting off into genres as opposed to, I don't know, having sounds that are more like the 80s, where you had a little bit of everything and everything, you know? But so also what's interesting is I happen to know quite a bit about Sting because, as I mentioned before, I've read his biography and I'm a big fan of his. You can also tell that he's journeying through this. He's traveling the world. But he's not traveling the world as a band. He's actually able to connect with musicians from these areas he's going to, which is, it changes it changes you completely when you are immersed in other cultures, and that's what he's doing is he's immersing
yeah.
himself in other cultures.
That comes through in so many of his songs.
Oh yeah, big
Yeah.
time. But he was always a jazz musician, always, and he always will be, and that's his heart and soul. If he decides to add rock to it or pop to it, I think that's a little bit more on a whim. But I think at this point he's really playing what he wants to play, and this is what it sounds like.
And I think it's executed. He executes it so well, where he can, as you said, Sailor, travel and incorporate these different elements and introduce these different styles that to the mainstream in America and the UK, yet still keep its sting, not completely going off the deep end and doing crazy stuff.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's a genius in that right too. So, I mean, the guy he checks all the boxes when it comes to just everything you want in a musician, really.
Yes, that's the perfect way to say it. Yes, because he's evolving, and in this case, this is a musician I want to evolve, and I'm not often of that mind, and I've made that very clear. There are some bands that just shouldn't have evolved. They should have just kept doing what they did well because they didn't, I don't know, have the thing to evolve. And there's other artists that evolve, and even though they're different entities, I love all of them equally, even though they're different. He's a great example of that. And the other kick-ass song off of this album is Mad About You. And I just want to play that really quick. Because as I just play, all this time, and then Mad About You just shows, I think it's again, we know his diversity, but I think this really showcases that being on one album.
A stone's throw from Jerusalem, I walked a lonely mile in the moonlight, and though a million stars were shining, my heart was lost on a distant planet that whirls around the April moon, whirling in an arc of sadness. I'm lost without you, I'm lost without you. All my kingdoms turn to sand and fall into the sea. I'm mad about you, I'm mad about you.
Once again, his writing is just unreal. All right. Next, we have 10 Summoner's Tales. And this is March of 93, and this goes 3 times platinum. And this is his this is his sweet spot. I think this is his sweet spot.
This album is really, really good. Actually, this is
this album.
I grew up because my mother became a big Sting fan, and this was always on rotation on the tape deck.
This is the album that did that. So
yes.
this album, I again watching all the freaking interviews and documentaries that I watched, brought a whole new group of fans to him with this album. You've got If I Ever Lose My Faith in You, Fields of Gold, Shape of My Heart. All 3 of those songs are my favorite.
7 Days too. 7 Days. I love that song.
7 Days is a good song.
Yeah, that's great.
Right. Yes. This is when he was making all the ladies swoon. Didn't matter if you were 90 or 10. Everybody had a crush on Sting.
I thought the same thing when I was listening to this again.
It's so true, right?
Yeah,
That's why I say this is his sweet spot.
Just a lot of those hooks and all that stuff. Yeah, it's just
and how sexy.
I was like, how dare you, man? How dare you?
How
I was swooning.
Guitar in Shape of My Heart. Oh my gosh.
Oh my God, Shape of My Heart. So okay, this was definitely like my playlist if I was like into somebody at the time. I was like, this was the playlist. Like if you're hooking up with someone, if you had a crush on someone or you were dating someone, it was like, this was the stuff, But if you look at photos of him, by the way, from 1993 when this album came out, I think it's the best he's ever looked. It's literally, this is his golden era. And it's just some of the most incredible songs. Fields of Gold is just, and If I Ever Lose My Faith, again, the lyrics to this song are just, he's just such a phenomenal, I know I keep saying the same thing, but I don't know what else to say. I don't have any more descriptives. I've had too much whiskey. But all right, let's play a little bit of Fields of Gold.
You remember me when the west wind moves upon the fields of barley. You forget the sun in his jealous sky as we walk in fields of gold. So she took her love for to gaze a while upon the fields of barley. In his arms she fell as her hair came down among the fields.
Unbelievable. All right, so what else do we want to say about this album? I mean, other
What
than
else
that,
can we
it's
say? I don't
amazing.
know.
You
Go
know,
listen to it.
Yeah. Yes, agreed. Okay, so he has after this album, he has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 albums after.
It's just
that.
amazing how much material he got in his solo career after the Police. It makes the Police look just like a footnote in his musical career.
It is a footnote. So solo and with the Police combined, Sting has sold over 100 million records, and he is ranked all over the place as one of the best living songwriters. By the way, did you know that he helped with collaboration write Money for Nothing with the Dire Straits, and All for Love with Bryan Adams?
I know he sang on Dire Straits' Money for Nothing, but I didn't know to what extent he collaborated on it, though.
Yeah. So in 2018, I'm just going to leave this stat to prove when we talk about him being a worldly musician and just everything he touched turns to fucking gold. He releases a reggae album, but not a cultural appropriated reggae album, right? He actually collaborates with a Jamaican musician who was and is Shaggy. And they win the Grammy Award for Best Reggae Album.
And that does not surprise me at all.
Yeah, it's just
not surprise me at all.
I'm gonna make a reggae album. Give me a fucking Grammy.
Yeah, we know Shaggy because of Sting. Thank you. So, and then just him as a person, him and his wife have been devoted to so many incredible and important causes over the years, and have done so much charity wise. And he has mentioned many times that he could care less about money. He doesn't plan to leave money to his children. He thinks his children are they're talented in their own right and can make their own money, and they spend their money on helping the planet. And that's, that doesn't hurt.
And this is why he got the CBE from the Queen. It's
Correct.
for his charitable work. Yep.
Yes. I mean, what they have done in the Amazon rainforest, I don't know if you guys know, for decades now, the work they've been doing there has been really incredible. In addition to him being a very handsome fella and an amazing musician, he is also a really great actor. And if you haven't seen him, like in Dune, for example, or The Bride, 1985, The Bride, see it. Trust me. Wait, didn't we say we were supposed to watch that? We
Probably.
Forgot. All right, we'll have to do it next time. Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, one of my favorite movies that his wife, I think, was producer on, if I'm right. He is Eddie's father and the owner of the bar. So if that recalls who he is in the movie, that movie is absolutely incredible. So he's just a really great actor. Ed and I were talking about the Vicar of Dibley
Yes.
and his cameo in the Vicar of Dibley, which and now Robert and I are going back and starting it all over because now we have to watch.
Yes, I have to watch that again too. We should get together and watch it at the same time.
We should. We absolutely should. Yes. So the whole point of this, we were supposed to basically decide who wins in the battle, Sting or the police. So I know exactly how I'm voting, and I'm going to go around and ask you guys, and then we will announce who wins this battle. Who would like to begin?
Oh, this is a
Ed.
tough one. Coming into this, I'm like, no contest. I know exactly how I'm going to vote. But then I started listening, diving into more of his solo work. I'm like, damn, this is getting tough. But as much as I love Sting and his solo work, though, I have such a link to the Police and their music as such a huge part of my adolescence and teen years. To me, I would have to go with the Police. As great as Sting, that doesn't take anything away from Police, or I'm sorry, from Sting and his talent. I love his new stuff, but if it comes down between the two, if I could only listen to the Police's body of work or listen to the Sting's body of work for the rest of my life, just because of that personal connection in my life, I would have to go Police. So that would be my vote.
Okay. Matt?
I will first start by saying that I'm so happy that we did this because I would be the first one to admit that I was probably a little bit too judgmental on him. I think maybe I listened to too many other people, or maybe too many, just assuming that Sting was just this pretentious sort of holier than thou guy like some of his contemporaries.
Mhm.
But I will sit here and I will say I was completely wrong. I was completely impressed and blown away by his breadth of talent, his breadth of knowledge for music, and just creating beautiful songs. That being said, with his solo stuff, although I made jokes about it before, it is really good stuff. It's just not my taste. But it did sort of bump him up a few notches as far as my respect for him as a musician. Great stuff. But I got to go with the Police. I just have to go with the Police. It's just a small chunk of time that they were around, yet it's left such a huge impact. And the stuff is just so goddamn groovy that I can't, if I'm choosing between the two, I cannot put that on the shelf. So I have to go with the Police.
Okay. So I'm going to basically just void the both of you because I'll tell you why. Sting is the Police. So what you need to do is you need to look at those albums as Sting's first albums. This is not taking anything away from the other two guys, but if you are familiar with Sting's body of work and then you go back and listen to the Police and you just look at all the writing credits and it's all Sting. So there is no Police without Sting. None of those songs exist without him. Not only that, but they are all it's him. I mean, through and through. Those are just his younger albums.
That's more than a fair
So
argument.
we're talking
way to
about
look at it.
Sting early years versus Sting later years is what we're
That's
talking about.
pretty much what we're
basically.
talking. That's pretty much what we're talking about. So, and I don't know if I had that opinion until I really dug deep, but I did a couple comparisons, and I mean, I don't want to get too bogged down in this, but I took a couple songs, and it's a fun exercise to do. So, take two songs off of each Police album and try to find a song that matches it on Sting's later albums, especially the early albums we covered. And you can find it super easy and super quickly. So to me, it's all Sting. So Sting wins.
Well, you all also notice too that even in his solo work, he recalls some lyrics from his years with the Police. You
Mhm.
see them coming back.
Yep. Yep.
How much of this has to do with you not liking the drummer anymore?
Nothing, because he's still a fantastic drummer. He had to be in the Police. There would be none of it without. I mean, he had the concept first and then found Sting. And I'm not taking anything away from Stuart Copeland as a talented, incredibly talented musician. Of course, I was merely talking about personality, and there was no way the two of them were going to ever make it together.
Oh, no.
And I think it was clear when Sting said, sure, we'll probably play together again another time, but writing an album together will never happen.
We'll be together someday.
I wonder how many people came upon Sting, like, say, in the mid-90s, like around Mercury Rising, and they're like, oh, shit, he's got all of this stuff from 15, 20 years ago. And then they went back and they're like, oh, the Police. Okay. Like, so
Again,
different. Yeah.
Absolutely happened.
Yeah.
Sure.
Because
that's kind of your argument, though, here. Like,
yes, because
yeah.
Andy and Stuart, I mean, they're doing things, sure, but who the fuck knows them?
Yeah.
Like,
it's a fair
Sting
point.
Sting is a household name. You
Yeah.
can be 80 or probably, I mean, my grandmother knew who Sting was, and she's passed away in her 90s. And you can be 10 years old right now. And my niece, if I say Sting, she knows. She may not recall his music, but she knows he's an artist. So yeah, I think that's the point, is that it's all Sting.
I'll tell you one thing Sting is not, though. At least this thing. He is not a 6-time world heavyweight champion.
No, he's just had 50 million other worldwide awards.
And he's not a Chicago soccer team either.
Yeah.
Every country on the planet has music. They don't all have professional wrestling. So, I mean, saying you're the world anything is a bit like saying, I don't know, Miss Universe. Like, we're the only habitable planet on the universe. Shut the fuck up.
Had to incorporate the wrestler in at some point too.
Of course you did. And
Yeah.
and Matt and I found a really great photo as I was like looking over. I was trying to find like my favorite era of Sting, because he's just such a damn sexy man. And I came across a photo that was Sting hanging out with Sting. That's what it was titled.
Oh my gosh.
And it was the wrestler and,
That's
and
awesome.
the musician from the 80s too. Yeah, it was really great. Well, fuck. That was easier than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, that was fun. I'm really glad we have a chance to visit this, because as I was saying to you before we started recording, I've enjoyed Sting's music, some of the hits, but I had never really taken the time to really listen to it and go and listen to his broader spectrum of his body of work. And I'm glad I did, because I am hooked. Like I said, I've been listening to Sting, many hours of Sting, just because I want to, not just for the show. After this happened. So yeah, good stuff. Desert Rose, another one that hasn't been brought up that I love too.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Another great example of his
another huge
world
hit,
music
too.
and his how he embraces the music of other cultures and kind of brings it in and exposes it to people who may not have heard that style before.
Yes. And
Really cool.
Another thing just before we leave that I want to make clear, that he helped yoga become what it is, like a staple in American society. Like, everybody at
Really?
least knows what yoga is. Oh yeah. He started doing yoga in the 70s, right?
Oh, I remember there was on PBS, there was a yoga, like a TV show where they would do yoga on TV. Like when I was a really little kid, watch this. It was like, come on after, I don't know, after Sesame Street or something like that. Then all of a sudden there would be like yoga coming on TV.
So
That's
random.
how my first exposure to yoga.
Well, apparently he was asked about his sexual prowess in an interview. and he
I heard
said,
about this. Yeah.
yes. So this is a famous story if you don't know this, but he said because of yoga, he can go for hours. And he was asked, well, how many hours? And he said, I can go for 8 hours. Ask Trudy.
Yeah.
I
That
don't
made the
want
rounds.
anyone
I
to
remember
go
that made
for
the
8
rounds.
hours.
That made the rounds on all the late night shows.
Get
Yeah,
off of
he-
me
Ow.
and go eat a pizza. Go to bed. Fuck off. 8 hours. Unless I'm on something, which I don't do drugs, so I guess.
Oh.
Yeah, there is such a thing as too long.
Too much.
I mean, with
Yeah.
Sting, maybe not. Maybe not. It's Sting. All right. That is the end of this. This was super fun. Thank you, Matt, for the suggestion. This was really great. Next time, we're going to get back to our metal band. Wait, what were we doing? Hair band?
Our hair metal series.
Our hair metal series. Shit. Actually,
Maybe.
maybe we will get back to it. We're going to have some fun guests coming up on a future show. And until then, we'll play us out with Desert Rose.